Hey, welcome to another video. Today we are working on the Jimny. Got a job to do, kind of a little bit of a service maintenance job on the Jimny. I'll go into it in a bit more detail, but basically we're going to overhaul the front hubs. So that's going to be new bearings, new seals, the whole works basically. The whole front axle is going to be overhauled. Well, the hubs assemblies anyway. You'll have to excuse the mess in the garage because I've got 3 ongoing projects at the moment, plus this. So I'm making quite a few videos, but unfortunately all of them are kind of starting to ground to a halt because I'm waiting on parts. So I've decided to make a start on this. The snow's gone again. So we had quite a bit of snow. When was it? Maybe 5 days ago we had quite a lot of snow, but it's since melted. Today we've got quite a lot of wind. I don't know if you can hear the garage shutter doors kind of rattling in the background there, but yeah, it's quite strong winds. But again, I think next week they're predicting snow again. So yeah, I want to get this fixed or these issues resolved because I will explain more now. Let's get into it. If you don't know already, the Jimny is a part-time 4-wheel drive. So generally it's rear-wheel drive until you put it into 4-wheel drive with the transfer case. Now on the front axle here, it has freewheeling hubs. So what this does basically, if you don't know, this system here actually disconnects the wheels from the drive shaft, so to speak. So when you're in rear wheel drive, kind of just cruising around on the highway, by disconnecting these front wheels from the drive shaft, you're actually cutting down on a load of resistance in the drivetrain. This apparently saves quite a lot of fuel. I find that hard to believe, but anyway, it must make some difference. But anyway, get back to what I'm talking about. When we had the snow, basically I engaged these, so if you can't see, these are currently in the free position, but you turn this like this into the locked position. There's a load of splines in there that kind of engage onto the drive shaft, and that is now locked to the prop shaft, or the drive shaft, which then obviously when you put it in 4-wheel drive gives you actual 4-wheel drive. Now when we had the snow a week ago, I did this, but I was still only in rear wheel drive. Now it's quite common, I had this on my Land Rover series vehicle, it's quite common for these to kind of get a little bit of rust or gunk in them and they don't engage correctly. I thought when I bought the car, I thought I had them engaged, but I now realize they were stuck. So basically off camera, I stripped these and freed them all off, cleaned them all up, put them back together. I didn't record it because there was quite a lot of snow, so I just wanted to get this fixed so I could use it. However, in doing so has then revealed another problem. There's quite a big rumble at about 40 kilometers an hour upwards. I think the wheel bearings may be gone or going, and I believe maybe the knuckle bearings are potentially going or gone, because when I wobble the wheel like this, there's a bit of a clunk, which isn't right. There shouldn't be no clunking. So basically I bought all the parts to strip down the hub, rebuild it with new bearings, etc. So let's get into it. First what we need to do is jack up the front of the car. I have also developed another fault. There's a little splash of oil there, and I believe that's coming from this guy here, which is the end of the steering rack, so possibly power steering fluid. So you need to check into that. But my list of projects needs to get shorter, not longer, so that I'm going to live with for just a little bit longer. Okay, we're jacked up. Now let's bring you in closer so you can see what I'm talking about. Now see if I can get you in close so you can hear it. I don't know if you can see that. The wheel. There's quite a lot of play on that wheel. Basically we're going to start by removing all of this stuff. So first we'll take off the front of the freewheeling hub, and then we'll take off the actual inner part, and then just kind of step by step taking it all off. I'll have to take the brake caliper off. Now some people take the steering joint knuckle off, but I've also seen people that don't do it, so I'm hoping that I don't need to do that. It's one less thing to take off. But anyway, let's start by getting this freewheeling hub stripped down, and I'll kind of show you what I had to do and what kind of found the issue in the first place. Okay, so let's bring you in for a closer look. So basically this is the freewheeling hub part. As you can see, there's kind of a spring there and it's on a kind of a coil. Anyway, basically this goes in and out on this kind of outer spigot, and that engages in here on the splines, on the outer splines, on the outer edge of this, and inside there's a load of splines and they engage on the inside edge there. So yeah, that is basically the freewheeling hub. That's all it does, is when you twist this knob on the inside, is this kind of gear goes in and out. Hard to do with one hand, but kind of all goes in and out as one piece, and that's what engages. So basically all of this in here was kind of a bit cruddy and all seized up, so I just cleaned it out, greased it up, put it back together. Now I didn't replace the gaskets, I just got it back together just to see me through the winter. But as you can see, it already is quite gunky in there again, which means the gaskets are no good. So that is, I have ordered new gaskets. So yeah, that's another job to do as we rebuild it backwards and put it back together again. So for now, we'll just get this apart and I guess get the next section off. Now I do envisage this being a rather dirty task, hence why I've donned the overalls again. Just getting all these freed off. I'll perhaps have to treat myself to an impact gun. If you're watching and you would like to sponsor an impact gun. Okay. Now I need to remember how all of this goes back together, because there's quite a lot that comes off with this. Now I feel like I may have to take this circlip off, or this retaining clip. There's a retaining clip just in here. I think that might be keeping this assembly on. Let's see. Yes, I'm right. Okay, so that needs to come out. Okay, so there's the retaining ring. Okay, yeah, that generally doesn't look too bad. Of course, I'm gonna give this a good clean up while it's out, but generally that's pretty good. I still think, yeah, there's still some kind of movement there, and looking at this lock washer and the grease in there, there's some kind of contamination. So what's next? I guess we can probably look at getting the brake caliper off, which then will allow us to take the disc off. And I did just spot there's a little O-ring here. If you're following this build, don't forget there's a little O-ring there, which I guess sits on the back of here. So I'm going to pop it back on here, just so we don't lose it. So that I also have to replace. So hopefully the audio is okay. I've put the microphone up on the wheel arch in the hopes that it doesn't get any of my breathing or rustling of my overalls. So I'm just undoing the bolts that retain the caliper now. And we'll just hang him up out of the way. Okay, so I haven't got anything else to use, so I'm going to use a cable tie. Where are we going to hook him? I guess we can just probably hang him from there. So just make a loop on the cable tie. Yeah, and then hopefully we can just hang him off of the shock absorber like that. I think that's pretty good. Okay, that should hopefully allow us to take disc off. We're probably just going to need a bit of gentle persuasion on that. So it does actually have some jacking screws here. There we go. So yeah, so it looks like the bolts that hold this hub assembly on the freewheeling hub assembly, we can take them out, and if you're very gentle you can use them as jacking bolts for the disc. So that's good, that's handy to know. And there is one disc off. So what we've got next? I think we need to undo this. There's definitely some play in there still. Now I've got this Suzuki hub socket, which is, here's the part number for that. Now they are discontinued, but you can still get them if you shop around. Anyway, this is, I believe it's a 50 or 52 mil. I'll have to double check. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see. Socket, but obviously it's exceptionally deep because it slides over this spline shaft here. Goes on here, and this is what undoes this locking nut. And then it'll also do the next nut inside because it's deep enough to accommodate that. So let's have a little look. Let's get this sprayed off a little bit. So somewhere here, one of these tabs is bent over. So I think here. Right, that should free off that nut. Yeah, it does. So that's one nut down. So one of the other tabs is bent over backwards to lock that nut, but of course this tabbed washer just comes away now. So there's what you're looking at. That then leaves one more nut. Which I've undone now. Just a little bit more and that should fall off. So this nut, oh, it's the same thickness. I thought it was thicker. And then I think there's a washer in here that we need to get out. So you don't want to lose that washer because I believe you need it. Or it's some kind of shimming kind of washer. Right. So there he is. Okay. So it looks like, oh, there's the assembly off. Generally, it's not too bad actually. But that is the hub assembly all come off now. So there's one bearing here and one bearing in the back, and also a seal in the back here that you have to replace. But we're going even deeper. So next, I believe we need to take off is this shield here. Okay. Yes. So that is, I don't know what part you would call this. It's kind of a shield, but also it retains the knuckle. So that piece. Now I believe next job is to take out this drive shaft. So a slight oversight on my behalf is I forgot about the differential oil. So I would hazard a guess, however, that that is overfilled because the filling point is lower. So unless we're at a slight angle maybe. Oh. So these knuckle joints have a shim in them, so you need to remember to keep the shim because that's going to be very important later on. I don't know if there's a top and a bottom, so I guess just make sure you separate them so you know which is which. You need to be catching all this oil in a minute. It's all going to gush out of there, isn't it? Okay, so round the back we have a load of bolts that I've slackened off. I forgot to record it, but I'm sure you don't need to see me do it. So just undo all of them. And there's a kind of a packing, a fabric kind of packing behind here that seals the actual ball joint for the knuckle. So there we go, the last of the bolts out. How many have we got? 2, 4, 6, 8 bolts. And that should allow this knuckle piece to come away now. Okay, there we are. So, oh, and there's the one of the bearings come out already. So, yeah, so you don't actually need to remove the steering arm, although I guess it would probably make it easier because you could take this off and clean it out of situ, but I'm just going to clean it in situ. Now I don't know if you can see that, but there's quite a lot of red rust in the bottom here, which says to me there's a bit of contamination somewhere. This is the disc, and there's a couple of parts to this. So there's one metal part, so let's go left there. We've got a right here. Then we've got some kind of fabric, which felt, I guess you could say, and they do kind of overlap each other, alternating kind of directions. So that's something to bear in mind. That's the top, and that would have been the bottom. And then this is the felt piece I was talking about. This is kind of what keeps the seal, although that's very crusty. I think that's been letting in water for quite some time. And we also have a top bearing. Now the top bearing, to be honest, doesn't feel too bad, and it doesn't look too bad either. But we are here now, so we might as well clean it all out and strip it all out and replace it. While we're here, we might as well do that. Hey guys, apologies, my phone died. So it's now a couple of days later. We're back in the garage and we're finishing off this hub assembly. So now we're at a stage, basically after my camera died, I just carried on cleaning stuff up. So I'm kind of now at a position where I can start the rebuild of this part, kind of the knuckle part of the hub. And then I need to carry on cleaning up the hub, fit the new hub bearings, and kind of just all start piecing it back together. So first things first, I need to replace the seal inside this knuckle, the oil seal. Now I have got some new parts. Well, I've got lots of new parts. So this is the oil seal that's going to go in there. Now in the description, I will put all of the part numbers that I've used today for one hub. So if you're going to do this job yourself, you'll need to double the quantity of what I list here. I am doing both sides, but to kind of stop confusion, I will list the parts you will need for one hub or one side. So without ado, let's get this oil seal in. Then next we're going to be mounting this knuckle joint. Okay, so I've got my oil seal here. Break it open, just offer it up and make sure, yeah, that's the right size. So I'm going to lose a little bit more oil, I can see. So we'll try and get that one out and this one pressed in as quick as I can. There we go, that's out. And let's get the new one in as quick as I can. I just want to check that that is nice and clean and free of debris. Okay, I'm just going to gently tap this in. Okay, that's one new part in. Now, it's not the end of the world if I get a little bit of oil in here, but I do want to try and keep it as clean and free of oil as I can. That is that part in. So the next thing we need to do is we need to knock out the upper and lower outer race of these bearings. Now, I did already start with the lower race the other day, so it just needs a little bit more tapping and it should fall out. There we go. So that is the outer race. Hopefully you can see that of the lower bearing, which I believe was this one. So they're tapered and that sits inside there like that. Now, it is a bit grumbly. It's a good job that I'm changing that. Now that is the lower one, so you would expect that one to probably be the one with the contaminants, because if you do get any kind of leak past a seal, then that is the one that's going to get damaged first. Okay, that's the top one out as well now. Perfect. So here are the new bearings, or one of the new bearings. I don't know if you can see that, how well you can see that, but the actual bearing is tapered, which means it's kind of almost a cone shape. So it will actually only go one way into this race. So if you can see, it won't go in this way, but it will go in this way. So we need to make sure when we press this race into the housing, it's in such a way that we can then pop this bearing in. I quite like these ones. They've got their own little oil seal on it. It doesn't look like the originals did. So hopefully that means these are going to last just a little bit longer. So yeah, so basically we're going to put these races in and then we're going to probably pre-pack some grease into these bearings. And then that will allow us ready to, yeah, this will then allow us to refit this knuckle housing, I guess. So yeah, let's put this somewhere clean so it doesn't get contaminated. He is now in there nicely. Perfect, so that's the upper race in, or the outer race of the upper bearing. Okay, both bearings in now. Apologies guys, I totally forgot to press record. I was covered in grease. So I've packed the bearings and I've now put the bearings in, the one on the bottom and the one in the top. So the next thing to do, I believe, is to put this knuckle housing back on. Like so. Okay, something like that. And then we can put the top and the bottom pin in, I guess, and then we'll put the seals around the back of it. So I gave the shim and the pin a clean. So I'm going to put just a little bit of sealant on these, just because I've seen everybody else do it, so I think I should do it. You don't need much of this stuff. So that's one face done. So I'll drop the shim onto here now. And then I'm also going to put a little bit on the shim's face as well. And this, is going to sit into the top bearing. You might just have to give it a wiggle to get it to seat. There we go. Okay, so same thing again. I'm going to put some sealant on this bottom. Okay, nice. Woo, good job. Okay, so what's next? Next we need to fit the seals behind this knuckle joint now. Okay, big problem guys. I forgot to put this seal on behind here. How am I going to get that on? I think I need to take this off again. Burp. Okay, crisis averted. I just quickly whipped that off before the sealant set, thankfully. And I've put the seal in. So now that just needs kind of pressing into place. Right, so next is to put, we've got two inner metal plates and they're the ones that will push up against the seal. And then we've got two fabric kind of fibrous seals here and then two outer metal plates. So just need to figure out which way it goes. Ready? So there's a little bit of an order to it. We have these two metal plates which go in first. Then we have the oil seal, or the seal that we fitted, that goes in behind this. And then on top of those, we have these fibrous seals. So it's going to go this oil seal, fibrous seals, and then on top of those, these metal shields that go last. So I don't know how it's best to do this. I think it's going to be a bit tricky. So the idea is you don't want these to overlap like this. You want them to kind of, the silver ones to go this way, for example, and then the black ones to go kind of opposite, if that makes sense. I know what I mean. Hopefully you know what I mean. I guess I'm going to put a little bit of sealant on these actually, I think. It looks like the split in these first set of metal plates is horizontal, and then the black ones is going to go vertical. So it's going to be like that, kind of looking at it from the other side. So let's see what we can do. This is incredibly fiddly, as you can imagine. Okay guys, I have got everything in behind there. I have no technique to give you. You need the patience of a saint. It is incredibly tricky to hold all of that together. But anyway, we're in, so let's get it all bolted down now, and then we can look at getting this drive shaft put back in, I guess. Next is the refitting of the drive shaft. However, before we put that in, need to load the knuckle up with a load of lithium grease. Now, lithium grease, if you've never used it before, is nasty stuff in the sense that it sticks to everything. So you do not want to get this on your clothes because it will not come out, I can guarantee you. I've got a couple of these bellows, which seem to be quite popular in Japan. So, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Okay guys, I've made a mistake again. The lithium grease I've ordered in these cartridge tubes is the wrong type of lithium grease. I didn't read it, and yeah, this isn't going to work for the CV joint. So we are kind of back to a stalemate. We've got everything rebuilt on the knuckle joint here, so that's nice, and it's not turning at the moment, obviously, but that's ready to rock. We just need to pack it full of lithium grease, and then the CV joint can go back in. So until then, let's carry on cleaning up. We need to fit the bearings in this hub assembly, and then we need to clean up the freewheeling hub parts. And then once I get the grease ordered and delivered, we can just stick it all back together. So let's get these bearings out. Okay, so here is where we're at, guys. I've cleaned up everything. So this is the hub. I've already gone ahead and taken out the old bearings. One of them was definitely a little bit grumbly. So hopefully this is the issue I'm having. Anyway, one thing to note is these, let's say this is the front face. This front face has one tapered bearing. Now the rear face has one tapered bearing and then an oil seal, or I call it oil seal, but a seal of some kind. So you need to remember to refit this. Now, one thing to note is this seal doesn't actually sit completely flush with this lip here. It will sit proud slightly, and I believe that is to then mount up against or run up against here. Now you can see kind of like a shiny area, like a ring around this edge. So that's what the seal actually runs up against. So you need to make sure this is nice and clean when you put it back together and no contaminants, so that seal has the best chance of keeping a seal, so to speak. So anyway, let's get the inner races back in there. Let's start with this rear set first, or rear bearing first, just because it's going to be the easiest to get in. So again, the same thing as before, is it is tapered, so there'll be a leading edge. So just remember the way you take the bearing out. So this bearing is coming out this way. So we need to make sure that it goes in, the outer race goes in this way, so that it can then drop in there nicely. Now these definitely need packing with grease, because as you can see, there's no grease on them whatsoever at the moment. So I'll put this to one side, and now let's look at getting this in. So we need to get it nice and square, ideally. Okay, so that's gone in nice and square. So now, so you can do this a couple of different ways. Is you can use an older race to sit on the edge here, tap that in, and then tap the old race back out again. And or if you're very careful, you can just tap it in with a punch. But you just need to make sure you keep it nice and square on the way down. Okay, so that is the rear race down. The next thing we're going to do is fit the front one. So we'll flip it over. This should be maybe potentially easier because it's not got to go so far down. So hopefully you can see this outer race on the back is in, and the outer race on the front is in. So now we just need to pack the bearings and put them in. Once the back bearing is in, we can then also put the oil seal on. So this is going to be the same technique I used for the knuckle pins to pack it with grease. So we'll get our grease. My technique is to just kind of slap it on the edge there, and as you're slapping it in, it kind of forces the grease into the bearing. And we're also going to put a nice amount inside here as well. Okay, so we'll drop him in. Okay, and then we need to fit an oil seal. In case I don't record it, when I'm going to push this in right now, but when I come to actually mount it onto the hub assembly, I'm going to put a load of silicone grease on here just to help lubricate the rubber. But for now, let's get this pressed into here. Yeah, I don't know how well you can see that, but it's just sat proud slightly. Next is to fit the front inner race. So again, we're now back onto the front. Nice big lump of grease. I'll just start packing it in. Okay, drop him in. That is one hub assembly ready to go back together. The only other thing we do need to do is we're going to replace this gasket here and this O-ring on the back here. Now I'll do the O-ring when I refit it, just because I don't want it to fall off in the meantime. But this gasket, in order to get that off, we need to get this inner and outer spline section off. So I believe the technique to it is you just have to get it at the right angle, and it should just pop off like that. So as you can see, there's a cutout here, and I don't know how well I can show. I'll do my best. But on this inner spring edge here, the retaining part for the spring is actually a hook, and that goes into that cutout. So that just pops in and does like a half or a quarter turn. So we do have new gaskets for that. So I'm just going to clean this up and get that fitted. Okay, we're back again. Yet again, my phone stopped recording. This time it ran out of storage. We're back on the Jimny. I've got the grease. I've got the grease that I should have ordered in the first place. So this is the final push now. I am going to get it done today. I've already started stripping the other side, but I'm not going to include that in this video because once you've seen one side, you've seen both sides. So let's get this one side back together. So forgive the mess. I kind of got fed up and it was the end of the night and I needed to go to bed and I was tired. And anyway, I've got all the parts all cleaned up, ready to go back on. So it is now a case of refitting. So first things first is get the drive shaft in. Once we've got the drive shaft in, it's going to be rebuilding brake assembly and the hub and then that piece, and yeah, you get the picture. Let's crack on. We have now got to get the drive shaft in, so what I do need to do is pack it full of this grease. Now this is the right grease to use now. I've checked and doubled and triple checked, so it's just a case of getting this into there. They like these bellow kind of things in Japan, or it seems to be quite a popular thing. I never really seen them in the UK like this, but anyway, it's just a case of getting a load of this in there. That might have been too much. Anyway, now I do want to make sure it's kind of everywhere in here. So I'm just going to spread it around. Now this is, I don't know if I said in my last video, but this is the really nasty stuff, as in this will stick to your clothes really bad. So you do not want to get it onto your clothes at all. And then I'm just going to put a bit on this CV joint. Right. So now it's just a case of getting this. Now there is a bit of a technique to this. You kind of need to push it down at an angle. Like that. There we go. Okay, right, I'm happy that's in. So this goes back with the cutout facing the rear of the car. So I do just want to give this another wipe just to make sure it's all new fresh grease. That's going to go onto this. And we are going to put just a little bit of sealant on here just to make sure we get a nice clean seal on it. So you don't need loads of the sealant on there, just enough that when it hits the surface it spreads out. And of course on top of that we then need to put this housing, which is for the brake disc and brake caliper. So we'll just give this a quick clean. I'm not going to go crazy on it, although actually I now see that that's a sealing surface on here, I believe, so I need to put a bit of sealant on there. So let's clean it up better. Okay, so that's the, I guess, the knuckle face on and the splash guard for the disc. The next big step is going to be getting the actual hub on with the hub bearings. Just a case of refitting. I do just want to put a bit of silicone grease on this oil seal to kind of give it a bit of a head start. So that's going to go on. Okay, we've got a bit of excess grease there. So we'll just take our sock and remove that. Okay, so next is to put the locking washers and the tab washer on. So I do actually have a new tab washer. Of course we do need to remember to put in this little shim. So this little shim just sits in here like that, and that's what presses up against the bearing and not the actual nut itself. So once you've got that washer in, the next job to do is put on these locking nuts. The procedure for this, first thing we need to do is preload the bearings. So to do that, we tighten this up, okay, then we get our trusty torque wrench and we're going to apply a torque to this front bearing assembly like that. So that preloads it, make sure it's all in the right place. Then we just back it off, so that makes sure everything's centralized. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to basically it's a turning force. So they recommend between 1 to 3 kilograms of force required to turn the hub, and then you know you've got the correct load. So what I've seen a lot of people do is take your old travel scales, switch it on, and can you see that? Yeah. And then basically pull and check the reading. So that's 0.7. Hopefully you can see that. So we know we need to just add a little bit more onto our nut. So let's see what that does. I don't want to go too much because then you have to go back all the way. So clear it. The 1.5. Okay, I'm happy with that. That feels pretty good. So the next thing we need to do is put on the lock washer, but this is an old one and we have a new one, so let's get the new one. Okay, so we've got the new castellated lock washer, so that goes on top. So there is a notch here, so you need to line that up with the notch just here. So goes on there. So he goes on top now, and again we need to torque him up. So again, we're going to torque him up as well. Okay, so what we do need to do is just double check now that we still have the same amount of force required to rotate the hub. So once you've got that locked up, I've got 1.9 kilograms now of force to get this to turn, which is great, bang in between the 1 and the 3. So the next thing you need to do is find where the flats are on the nut and find one of the castellations, I guess, on the tab washer, so that you get the flat edge of the nut and you can bend the washer over so it kind of creates a lock on there. So I can see the back washer, it's this one here. So we're just going to bend that over like so. And on the front one here, I think this one is the closest one. So we just need to bend that out like so. I'll just give him a hit from the outside as well. Because these nuts are not actually tightened hard up against something and there is play in the bearings over time will slowly they will wear to an extent, so these nuts will become loose. So that's why there is this washer here, and that's to stop them actually undoing on themselves. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So the next step, I guess, is to get the disc back on, brake disc and caliper, and then we can look at getting the hub on, the freewheeling hub and the wheel on, and then that's done. So let's crack on. Got the caliper back on, we've got the disc back on, we've got everything locked up now. So the next thing to do is refit this outer hub. Now we do have a new seal to put in here, so we'll just pick out that old one. So there's the old seal. So the O-ring sits in here like so. Okay, and one thing I do have for it now is this seal. Now this seal didn't exist when I took it apart, so that's going to be one of the reasons probably why we got a load of gunky stuff in there, or some rust, because water found its way in. So this seal basically is just going on the back of here, as well as that O-ring, like that. Now this just lines up like so. Like that. Okay, so we've got these tapered bolts. I don't know what the scientific or the actual engineering term for these, but they're like tapered locating bolts, I guess. That keeps the hub itself nice and central. The last thing to do, other than put the wheel on, is to, I tell you what I didn't do, is put the retaining clip in here. I just remembered I need to pull the shaft out slightly, so I need to find another bolt. Now I know these aren't really the right things to be using because there's no eyes on this clip, but it's the only thing I've got which potentially is going to help. So even these don't open up wide enough. Oh, it's in. It's in, guys. Woohoo! Okay, I just want to make sure that is nice and in there properly. That's perfect. Okay, guys, we are almost at the end. That's in there, good and proper. Okay, home straight, guys, home straight. Right, what's next? We need to refit the freewheeling hub. So I have put a new gasket on there, haven't I? There's the old one in the bin. Here's the new one. So that's just a case now of putting them back together. I've greased it all up, so it should be free. So I'm just gonna turn it to the free position, like that. And we are back. Finally, we have rebuilt the front hub of a Jimny JA11. Now, in fairness, most vehicles will be a similar process. Obviously, you've got the added extra of this freewheeling hub aspect on this, but generally most vehicles are very similar in front hub assemblies. Generally, not always, but generally. Nice. Okay, let's get these nuts back on. Now, I do need to torque these nuts down, but if you remember the start of the video, we had a bit of a rock. Now let's see. Nothing. Nice and solid. Oh yeah, this is going to be a dream to drive. Okay, so you've just sat through a nice long tutorial of how to do a hub assembly on the JA11. So I'm now going to crack on and do the other side. I'm not going to show you, you've already seen one, you've seen them both. So the next clip is hopefully me taking it out for a test drive to see if it's made a difference. So fingers crossed, catch me in a minute. Okay guys, as promised, we are driving the Jimny. Yeah, so the bearings have made somewhat of a difference. Unfortunately, I think they've only made a 70% difference, to be honest. There's still, I've kind of picked up on a new sound now, a new rumble, and my guess is I would hazard, or I would edge towards maybe UJs. So yeah, we've had a bit of snowfall, so I've already got the freewheeling hubs engaged. So yeah, it still looks like we've got a little bit of a rumble going on. So unfortunately, I think that means we're going to have to swap out the front UJ. But I've already got the parts on order. They're fairly cheap. I've done them before on the Land Rover many times. So I guess that's going to wrap up this video. I'm going to make my way back. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this, I guess, more informative video, tutorial, kind of, yeah. So please give it a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to comment if you want to see more Jimny videos. So I'm going to enjoy this snow for a little bit longer and then head back. So I will see you next time. Take care.